hindsight is always 2020, and that's what we're doing today, all right? Shout out to Switch Out for the video. The link to this video will be in the description. These NBA moves age nothing like we thought. I see Drew on the thumbnail. I see Kai. I see Dame on the thumbnail. I already know where this is going, but it is time to have these discussions. So.
This has to go down as one of the most epic failures in the history of this league, does it not? I mean, that was a surefire championship on paper when those three guys came together. And that's what I'm saying. It was the most unguardable offensive trio in the history of this league at the top of any roster. And look what they have to show for it now as they break it up. So
I have an announcement to make. I think the Phoenix Suns just won the NBA championship.
Skipperson. Come on, bro. Hey, they was doing it live in Arizona, man. That was working the crowd. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call working the crowd.
They did it now for Phoenix Suns stuff now. And that is what Woj and other people have talked about. It is because they are interested in tempting the Suns to try to trade them Kevin Durant now. They don't want to do this later. They want to put this on the table to see if the Suns will be tempted by it.
2 summers ago was one of the more dramatic NBA summers that I can actually remember. June 16th, Golden State's dynasty won their 4th championship, proving they didn't need KD and further cementing Stephen Curry's legacy. Exactly 2 weeks later, KD requested a trade and pretty much kicked off that summer. Now, this was directly after being swept by Boston and hearing all the critics about his legacy. To me, at that time, he had the Kobe problem, and I made a video about that.
That was a fun series, man. Fun series.
Fast forward to the following trade deadline, he and Kyrie, they got exactly what they wanted, being traded from the team they both handpicked 4 years prior. Kyrie went to Dallas, and KD obviously went to Phoenix. At that time, Phoenix, they looked like real title contenders and probably favorites, and I'm not gonna lie, it looked real scary for the West. But a year later, it's turned into a true nightmare. We laugh and kind of kick around the joke that, oh, now Phoenix is basically Brooklyn West. But I don't even think people understand exactly how precisely accurate that statement really is.
I never trusted the Phoenix Suns, man. I don't know. Maybe that's just KD meat riding, but I just never felt as if in the Phoenix Suns era that, yo, this is a team built to win they're gonna win it all this season. They just never had a well constructed all around roster after 21, to be honest with you, because I think 22 was when they made the Western Conference Finals or the semifinals, and then they got cooked by Luka. But after that, they just never felt as if like, okay, this is a well-rounded roster that's gonna go deep in these playoffs. It always revolved around, at least in the KD era, it always felt as if they just relied too much on D-Book and KD like carrying, and they didn't double down on it by bringing in Bradley Beal, but they doubled down on the idea of trying to get as much high-end star power as possible, and just everything will work itself out. Very 2010s mindset, like very late 2000s, 2010s mindset to be doing in 2024.
Kevin Durant has played exactly 83 games so far with Phoenix. He's 52-31. In his last 83 games with Brooklyn, he was exactly 52-31.
Damn.
It's been the Nets without drama. In KD's career with Brooklyn, the furthest he went is making the second round, losing his star point guard in that round, and ultimately losing to the eventual champion Bucks. Then the following season, he got swept in the first round. Well, so far with Phoenix, he made the second round, lost his star point guard in said round, and ultimately lost to the eventual champion Nuggets. Then the following year, he got swept just like Brooklyn. What makes it even worse for KD, and really Phoenix as a whole, is the situation they're currently stuck in. To me, what made Phoenix so mediocre last year was how thin they proved to be and how weak they were defensively and definitely on the glass. These are all crucial components to a championship team. We just saw it, and they really couldn't fill those spots, mainly because they were paying this big three $131 million last year. Well, next year, it literally gets no better. Devin Booker's contract kicks in, and basically inflation will destroy this team. Next season, that big three, they'll take up around $151 million. That's more than about 8 teams' full payroll last year. Phoenix next year is projected to have by far the highest payroll in the league, and they don't really have the cap to make the moves they desperately need to make this thing work.
That Bradley Beal trade was just so, jeez. I know that was so bad, chat. I'm not gonna lie. Like I just didn't see the vision, and then for them to essentially gaslight everyone after this past season, talking about, I mean, you know, if you look around the league, I think so many teams would love to be in the position we're at. No, they don't. I can name you 5 teams off the top of my head that would rather have the core that they got versus the core that the Suns got. Boston, Denver, OKC. I genuinely think the Spurs like the situation they're at compared to the Phoenix Suns. And then after that, I guess I'm having trouble now off the top of my head, but the Dallas Mavericks, bro. I think the Mavs really like where they're at compared to what the Phoenix Suns have right now, bro. Like,
it's safe to say this move looked way better 2 years ago. Now it looks like an absolute train wreck. In this video, I want to look at some of the more major moves over the past 2 years and how exactly they look now for the team that got the stars.
The Brooklyn Nets are trading Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. Irving is expected to arrive in Dallas today for a physical and make his Mavs debut at the Clippers on Wednesday, a source telling our Adrian Wojnarowski.
If you would have told me last year, the player that's going to be in the better situation post-trade deadline between KD and Kyrie, and told me Kyrie, I would have thought you was crazy. Literally just last year, Dallas, they looked like they were in absolute hell. Bad contracts, couldn't rebound. Kyrie's reputation was heavily stained. It looked like it was a desperation move from all parties. But now, the gamble for Kyrie, it has proven to absolutely pay off. Yes, they lost in the finals, and yes, they got absolutely dominated. And do I think this duo can ultimately win a championship? Not unless they get significantly better defensively on the wings. But it was a very positive step. Regardless of what actually happened in the finals, Kyrie helped them get there, and nobody saw that coming. Also, with them getting there, and them and their best player, Luka, getting that experience, it exposed things they can build and improve on for their future.
My main thing with the Kyrie trade is now the conversation is about what's going to get Dallas over the hump, right? And I think the core that they got, they're going to be contenders in the Western Conference for the near future. But I still think, and with all due respect to Kyrie, I am leaning towards the fact that still, even with how great Kyrie is, they're going to regret letting go of JB. Even like, especially with what JB has become. Because even though the Mavs are a heliocentric offense, it's not like Kyrie doesn't have the ability to get his shit off. And I feel like in these last finals, you replace Kyrie with JB, that at least becomes a 6-game series. Maybe it's because of the fact that, you know, the whole like Celtics got in Kyrie's head thing. Maybe that's just I don't think they're going to be doing a fuck Jaylen Brunson chance. But even if we take that aside, I think JB, because I think what Kyrie didn't provide in these last finals is a level of on-ball playmaking that I think Jaylen Brunson would have provided. I don't think it was a conversation about who's better off-ball and all of these things. It was their offense was Luka and Kyrie taking turns. And if that's the offense that they're running, Jaylen Brunson in that position would still be better than Kyrie, and especially moving forward with JB being younger than Kyrie, they're gonna regret. They will regret, letting go of JB. But as it pertains to Kyrie, it's as close as they can get, realistically speaking, to amending that mistake. But I still think the story at the end of this era, with Kyrie, is damn. They still made a mistake. At the end of the day, big picture, letting go of Jaylen Brunson.
Of Luka, but he really has to get into better shape and improve his lateral movement defensively. You cannot get blown by at this historic pace in the playoffs. That can't happen. But at least they got to the point where they saw that, and now they have options. The Kyrie trade was easily a positive. That team hasn't even been to the finals since 2011, and playing such a dominant team like Boston.
Yeah, in a vacuum though, that trade was great for them. Let me not get that twisted.
It exposed their glaring flaws, and unlike Phoenix, they have cap flexibility. Luka's the second, at worst, third best player in the sport, and next year he's the 15th highest player. Kyrie's 21st. The worst contract they have next year is Tim Hardaway, and it's expiring. So the Kyrie move, it not only patched up that massive Jaylen Brunson mistake, but it also gave Dallas light of what needs to be adjusted and built upon with their superstar Luka. To me, a major W. The Rudy Gobert trade 2 years ago, it's one of the
my only thing is with Kyrie's age, they gotta be quick. They gotta be quick with the moves. Like it has to be now. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think this is a core that you just run it back with the squad that they had last year. Bank on Luka getting better. Bank on Derek Lively getting better. And hey, maybe next year the cards just play our way and we win the championship next year. I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think what you need to do this offseason, because the window isn't necessarily relying on Luka and Derek Lively. It's relying on Kyrie being, 32, 33, 31, I don't know, and his window of being Kyrie the way we know Kyrie right now. So, try to get a Paul George in there. Because I think the championship window for them with Luka and Kyrie is the next 2 to 3 years. Anything past that, it's, Kyrie's not the same anymore. So, y'all got to win now.
Toughest ones to actually grade. On one end, and I've said this a lot, you have to give it praise because it did help this organization buy completely into some type of identity, something I believe all teams have to have. Before the Gobert trade, Minnesota was pretty mediocre defensively and on the glass. Since getting Gobert, they've been arguably the best defensive team when everybody's healthy and one of the best teams getting boards. But on the same token, where he's helped position them in the regular season with his defensive presence, he's also proven to be a liability in the playoffs when it really matters. This has been an ongoing discussion for years. Back when he was winning DPOYs with Utah and he didn't exactly have the perimeter defenders,
I still think that's unfair though. I think at the end of the day, Gobert is a flawed defender, like a lot of these defenders. And there are certain teams that can just take advantage of Rudy Gobert's weaknesses. I think even the Mavericks, right? Like, I don't know, bro. I just think everyone is just too hard on the criticism with Rudy Gobert. I understand he's winning DPOYs left and right, but one, I still think they're warranted, and two, no one ever said that Rudy Gobert was this perfect defender. No one said Rudy Gobert was this elite rim protector that can also defend out in the perimeter at a high level. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, dude. I think for the Timberwolves, I still, in hindsight, think it was a necessary move. I think in hindsight, it was a needle pusher. And, I think in this league, you do need an elite defense to win a championship. And the reason why they lost, while Gobert was a part of it, I do still think the bigger component of it was their offense. Now, you can say Gobert is a contributor in their offense not being good enough. That's fine. But I think the makeup of having Anthony Edwards with Gobert as a defensive anchor, as a lob threat, would be much better if, one, Cat just played better, and two, if they had just another on-ball playmaker alongside Anthony Edwards. Now, I'm not saying for them to get rid of Jaden McDaniels, but if Jaden McDaniels maybe becomes better next season, or they replace Mike Conley with a more potent point guard, as an on-ball playmaker, I think things would be completely different for them. I don't think it's necessarily Rudy Gobert not being good enough.
It looked like he got exposed. We get that. But I'm sorry, I can't go light on you when you're making $44 million. You're the reigning DPOY player. You got traded for 4 valuable players and 4 picks and a swap. I'm sorry, you deserve smoke. Minnesota had the best defense in the league all last year, like I mentioned. Damn near led the league in almost every defensive stat, and Rudy contributed heavily to that. But in the playoffs, again, where it really matters, I believe one of the biggest reasons they lost to Dallas was Chris Finch forcing Rudy Gobert on the floor. That particular series didn't really call for Gobert to play 33 minutes a night. It just didn't. Minnesota desperately needed spacing for Ant and Willie Conley to work. And for me, a front court of Naz Reid and Cat, it would have been way more beneficial versus Dallas. Then, while he was on the court, he didn't really play well. I'm not blaming Rudy Gobert solely because Cat, he played terribly, and Ant, he obviously calmed down. But Rudy's...
But that's what I'm saying, though, with the Rudy on defense thing. I think in the series right after, we saw that you could have a really effective defense against Dallas, even if you have a slow-footed big man out there. You know what I'm saying? The game plan was, I do think this is more so on Chris Finch than Rudy Gobert. Because we saw the next round, if you put your 4 on the opposing big man and put Rudy Gobert to the corner or in that dunker spot, like it takes away the lob threat for the Dallas Mavericks, and it makes them less effective. So... I don't think that's a Rudy Gobert thing, because Kristaps, he played just fine. I think it's on the schematics of how you guard the Dallas Mavericks. It's not necessarily a Rudy Gobert thing.
He's there for his defense and his rebounding, essentially. And being one of the best 2 players in those 2 particular components, he got out-rebounded by 2 Mavericks and outplayed by a rookie who basically shares his exact same role. Also defensively, he got heavily exploited in that drop. Luka and Lively, they had a field day with him, so that's a very bad look. Next year, they're going to really feel this trade because Ant, he won't be paid baby money no more. Ant is going to be making real superstar money. Minnesota, as it stands right now, they're projected to have the 2nd highest payroll next year. And personally, I would explore moving Cat. But right now, the Gobert trade, it makes sense for the regular season, but it clearly has a playoff ceiling. And he's going to be 32 next year. 2 years ago, we seen 2 ball-dominant backcourts form together that really didn't make the most sense, but they were extremely exciting. Cleveland got Donovan Mitchell, and to be honest, that's really looks somewhat like Utah East, and Atlanta got DeJounte Murray, and that's been a complete train wreck. The Cavs, they're a much better team because they're simply a much better defensive team, but with 2 small guards who can't stop opposing ball handlers and the rest of the team not really being dynamic enough on both sides, people could question if it was worth it. I know
I said that from the beginning, and everyone thought I was bugging, man. I said that from the beginning when they got D. Mitch. Biggest question was that backcourt. I think we have a lot of these conversations about teams, and when you bring out certain weaknesses, you get called hating because they're successful, despite you bringing that up. I always talk in terms of, at the end of the day, what is the flaw with this team that's going to stop them from winning a championship? That's always what I'm thinking of. You know what I'm saying? Just because, you know, let's bring it back to, I know this is another side tangent, but the Jaylen Brunson and I'm forgetting the woman coach who Becky Hammon saying JB is not a number 1 on a championship team. The context of that is not just the Eastern Conference Finals. The context of that is not just making it to the finals. The conversation is about winning a championship. You know what I'm saying? So when I say Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and the Cavs are cool, I think they're going to be a good, if not great team in the East. Is all of, like, at the end of the day, they got to answer. And is it going to cap them off with what Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are on the defensive side of the ball, right? Because what you have in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are 2 integral pieces to your offense that you're going to need to play a lot of minutes. But on the back end of that is they're going to have to go out there and play some fucking defense. And we saw that with the Dallas Mavericks in a more grand scale of, yo, Kyrie and Luka got to be out there, like, a lot. But defensively, the Celtics have these 2 pivot points on the offensive end that they can just continuously attack and continuously hunt for, because the Mavericks need them on the offensive side of the ball. So it's the same thing with the Cleveland Cavaliers, except Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell aren't Luka and Kyrie offensively. So
Darius hasn't really been healthy, so I'm trying to grade him fairly. But he or Mitchell, they can't stay in front of the Tyrese Halliburtons, the Tyrese Maxeys, the Dames, the Jaylen Brunsons, like none of them. They just can't. So to make up for it, those two have to carry so much of the load offensively. And quite frankly, I don't think Darius Garland is good enough. I just don't. Cleveland feels like a worse version of Dallas to me, where they have two decision makers whose defensive liabilities, a good
I just said that. That's funny.
The defensive team and two very solid bigs. But why I know it's not worth keeping that duo together, and why ultimately I believe Darius Garland has to go, it's kind of stunting the growth of Evan Mobley. We've seen this countless times, even with guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. When you go all in with a young team by getting a Donovan Mitchell, or in that case, Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, it forces a young player like Evan Mobley to buy into a specific role around the stars of the team. To me, that can stunt his development at that specific time.
But this is what I'm saying with the Cavs, though, with the timeline thing. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is the guy you keep. I think the guy that you keep, I think they can go two ways. Keep Jared Allen, keep Jared Allen, keep Donovan Mitchell, trade away Evan Mobley, trade away Darius Garland. Right? Trade away them for guys who are more ready to win now, who are 24, 25, 26, 27, maybe even 28, like around that range. You do that. Or you trade D. Mitch, you trade Jared Allen, you give the keys to Darius Garland, you give the keys to Evan Mobley, and you get pieces that complement Evan Mobley at the 5 and Darius Garland at the 1, and you go about it that way. Because they had something before D. Mitch came there. It just all went away because D. Mitch is a ball-dominant guard, and Darius Garland is not this off guard that they need him to be. That's just not his skill set.
Donovan is probably going to sign that max contract, and Evan Mobley, he will be up soon. Donovan is clearly better. The team played great when Darius got hurt for like a 20-game stretch, and this team could desperately use a two-way wing with some size. Unfortunately for Atlanta, the Hawks, they have a duo that simply doesn't work. As a team, their worst two-man lineup all last year was DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. That's the definition of an absolute nightmare. The initial idea of the trade was to help Trae Young become a better off-ball player next to Murray, and for Murray to help that team's perimeter defense. But
you know what's crazy, man? I think the question is defining what works. If defining what works is just being a contending perennial playoff team, I don't think Trae and DeJounte are the problem. For me, I think the problem is at the wing position, they've never had anyone competent. And then at the 4 or 5 slot, they've never really had anything competent. And they're also relying, like, they focus so much on offense. And I still think DeJounte Murray could be such a tremendous defender in the right role. I think he can do a lot of the things that what Derek White does. I think he can do a lot of the things that Drew Holiday does. I'm gonna keep it a whole stack. But the difference is Atlanta is asking him to be an anchor of a defense. And if the anchor of your defense is DeJounte Murray, that's just not gonna work. The same way if the anchor of your defense is Derek White and you surround him with a bunch of other bad defenders, or just average defenders, that's not going to work. But I don't think DeJounte and Trae were the problem, man. I'm sorry.
DeJounte has regressed a bit defensively, and Trae, he's proven not to really be an off-ball player. Trae has been utilized way more off-ball, and the numbers prove it. His percentages of field goals assisted on is risen significantly since the trade. But at the same time, he's become a way less efficient player. Since getting Murray, he's had his 2 worst shooting seasons since his rookie year. Mind you, before the trade, he had literally just had his best and was consistently improving. Literally, the best thing that came out of this trade was Wemby for San Antonio. I believe Murray, he should be on the move this summer. Build around Trae. He's your best player in 2 decades. The Dame Bucks trade out of nowhere last year, I gotta be real, it doesn't really look good or too promising right now. To be honest, it looks like they helped their rival start a dynasty, or at least an Eastern Conference dynasty, while simultaneously hurting their best player's chance to maximize his championship window.
I'm gonna give the Dame trade 1 more year. If Dame has a similar season to what he had last season, then yeah, I'm gonna look at that trade. I'm gonna look at that acquisition sideways. But I do still think the bigger problem with the Bucks is, number one, Giannis getting injured in the playoffs as well. You know, they're never going to reach their ceiling if Giannis is injured in the playoffs. I think number two, the coaching saga that they had, going from Mike Budenholzer to Adrian Griffin, and then firing Adrian Griffin and Doc Rivers, I think that's a bigger problem than just Dame's performance. And number three, the personnel that Dame and Giannis has to work with. Again, Dame defensively obviously is a problem, but knowing, because the reason why they got rid of Jrue Holiday for Damian Lillard does make sense, right? It makes sense. I think they felt as if offensively they were capped off. They felt as if offensively Jrue Holiday was not good enough and Chris Middleton was aging. So they needed a dynamic offensive player, specifically a guard that would allow Giannis to be more effective with his strengths, and not really rely on Giannis to be this ultra playmaker that he needs to be. You know what I'm saying? Get you a playmaker that can complement Giannis, right? So that is Dame. The cons with Dame is defensive, his defensive problems. But knowing that, they just didn't build a strong enough defensive core around Dame and around Giannis to cover up Dame's weaknesses defensively. Like, if they had a stronger defensive guard at that too, it would have been better. You know what I'm saying? If they had a stronger defender at that wing position, it would have been better. So yeah, I think again the overall team construction, coaching, and Giannis being injured, and Dame as well, part of it. Those are bigger problems than just Dame not playing as good as he needs to be.
If I just keep it basketball, the pick and roll between Dame and Giannis, it definitely had its moments, but it wasn't as dominant as I initially imagined. Dame didn't shoot nearly as efficiently as I thought he would with a lot less pressure, and the team took a much expected step back defensively, which used to be their identity. Kind of like I was saying with Cleveland, this team doesn't really have the athleticism to guard anybody on the wings, and especially anybody on Boston, and to me, that might make them way too reliant on Giannis, and he's already had injury problems. The Jrue Holiday trade, it just looks bad. Like, there's no way around that. You lost your only real hope at maintaining Boston's ball handlers with Jrue, and now he somehow joined them.
But to Milwaukee's bail, I guess, I'm never a fan of trying to hold back your own team's progression by, like, if you clearly see something that you can improve on, right? I'm not about to hold back my team improving just so that another team can't improve. Does that make sense? Now, I understand, like, it is a competition. It is a matter of, you got to run into that team at some point in time. But I also think we saw in these playoffs, like, I understand Denver seems inevitable, right? You got a game plan for Denver. But Dallas was such a beneficiary of just being on the other side of the bracket. And at the end of the day, only two teams had to deal with Denver, right? It was Los Angeles and it was Minnesota. Now, if you are one of those teams, hey, good luck to you. But to build your whole team's construction, to build your whole team's identity, to go up against one team, when there's a chance you don't even have to face them at all, depending on how the bracket goes. Hell, injuries are a factor into it. That just, I don't like that, bro. I don't like that.
Obviously, they didn't know that would happen, but Dame's offense has to be somewhere near 2020 Dame for him to remotely cover for the regression they've taken defensively and really just as a team. In less than a month, Dame is going to be 34. He's 6'2". Like, even if he's slightly better, that's still not enough to me. I'm not optimistic about this squad. I'm just not. Milwaukee is locked in to some pretty expensive contracts with a very old team next year. One of their gems last year, Malik Beasley, he played for like $2 million last year. That helped their cap. He shot like 41% from deep on 7 attempts. That spaced their floor, and he started 77 games. They're losing him. 1 year later, the trade not only helped your rival, but it seemed like it hurt your team's morale or something. Like, Dame still doesn't feel right as a Buck. I still see him hanging with Bam. I know you can have your own personal life.
Dame wants to go to Miami, bro.
But something just seems off with Milwaukee to me. And lastly, Boston. I mean, I don't really have much to say. Jrue Holiday was like their 4th best player, and he made so many winning plays on both sides. Jrue Holiday shot like 50, 41, 95 splits on his way to his 2nd championship with his 2nd team. Porzingis played a heavy role for Boston all regular season, giving them a reliable close to the basket threat and just being in a way defensively, being 7-3. Then even in the postseason, obviously he didn't play much because he was hurt, but game 1, he just set the tone for the finals.
Yeah, front office masterclass, bro. Boston is the blueprint. Boston, how they constructed their team is the blueprint. 2-way players that can put the ball on the floor at every single position, and every single position can space out the floor, at least from the starting 5. That's the game plan. That is 2024 basketball. And if you don't have those components, especially now that we're seeing more teams have those components, you are lacking. You are lacking. Having a non-on-ball playmaker out there is going to cook you, because the defense can probably schematically find a way to force those non-on-ball playmakers to make a decision. You know what I'm saying? If you have a defensive liability on the court and you're going up against a team with 5 on-ball creators, we are going to find a way to look for that mismatch one way or another. One way or another. And it may not be JT specifically hunting that mismatch. It's going to be Jrue. And Jrue is a good enough on-ball playmaker to abuse these certain matchups if you don't step up defensively. So, yeah, Boston's the blueprint. I think outside of Boston, OKC is doing a really good job of following those principles as well. I just think the difference is like Lou Dort not being the on-ball playmaker that he needs to be. But outside of that, I think New York is headed in that direction. A lot of versatility, a lot of guys that can score from every single position. The only problem with them is still on-ball playmaking outside of Jaylen Brunson, because Mikal can get a bucket on his own, OG can get a bucket on his own, Randall can get a bucket on his own, but everyone else, they kind of need someone to collapse the defense, and there's not enough like passing and playmaking on that team still, but nevertheless.
If anybody, they've obviously made the best moves over the past 2 years, even getting Brogdon after losing the finals in 2022. That was a major slight W. He was ultimately the piece they flipped for Jrue Holiday. So again,
Malcolm Brogdon never gets the respect that he deserves, bro. It's actually crazy, man. Like, Malcolm Brogdon was a 6th man of the year that year, bro. And like deservingly so, I think, in hindsight. But for him to just be like the main guy, and I understood it because the Celtics had like a logjam at that point guard position, and between Derek White, Marcus Smart, and Malcolm Brogdon, you would look to move Malcolm Brogdon before everyone else. And I don't know if y'all remember this, but the Porzingis trade actually revolved around Malcolm Brogdon first. But because of medical reasons, they had to pull away the trade, and because the Celtics wanted Porzingis so bad, they then said, all right, Marcus Smart got to go. You know what I'm saying? So that trade was actually supposed to be for Brogdon, but then what happened was, again, Jrue became available because Milwaukee traded him, and now Portland just wanted a veteran guard and Rob Williams, and it ended up being Malcolm Brogdon for Jrue Holiday. But damn, Malcolm Brogdon being tossed. Malcolm Brogdon has been tossed around in the league, man, ever since becoming 6th man of the year, man. It's tough, bro. Shout out Malcolm Brogdon.
All the moves Brad Stevens made over the past 2 years, major W's. If you guys like this video, if you made it this far, comment the worst move over the past 2 years and the best. The best to me is obviously Boston, but comment those two.
Best move? It wasn't a trade, but JB getting New York, jeez. That's such a game changer, bro. That's such a game changer. In terms of which move really moved the needle for one team, I ain't gonna lie, bro. We don't want to say it. Rudy Gobert. And obviously the Celtics masterclass as a whole has been crazy to watch. But once again, man, shout out to Switch Out for the video. Link to his video will be in the description down below. And I'll catch you on the next one, man. Peace.